The council chamber stretched wider than any building on Earth. Minyu stood in the center of the massive room, looking up at the 12 seats arranged in a perfect circle above him. Each seat held a different alien species, and all of them were staring down at him. He tried not to show his nervousness. This was the Galactic Council, the group that ruled over thousands of worlds. They had invited Earth to this meeting, but Minyu knew it wasn't really an invitation. It was a summons. "Commander Minyu of Earth," a voice boomed from above. It came from a being that looked like living crystal, refracting light in rainbow patterns. "We have observed your world for some time now. You have achieved faster-than-light travel. This brings you to our attention." Minyu nodded. "We're honored to meet the Council. Earth is eager to learn from older civilizations and find our place among the stars." A different voice spoke, this one sounding like grinding metal. "Your place is simple. Every species must follow Council law. Every species must accept Council authority. There is no other way." Doctor stood beside Minyu, her tablet translating the alien languages into Korean. She whispered to him, "They're not asking, they're telling." The crystalline being continued. "Earth will submit to Council integration within 30 of your days. You will accept our technology restrictions. You will surrender control of your military forces. You will allow Council observers on your world. These terms are not negotiable." Minyu felt his heart sink. "And if we refuse?" "Refusal is not possible," another Council member said. This one looked like a floating sphere of dark matter. "Every species chooses to join. It is the only logical choice." "But what if we need time to discuss this with our people?" Minyu asked. "Earth has many nations, many governments. We need to talk about such a big decision." The crystalline being made a sound like breaking glass. Minyu's translator told him it was laughter. "You have 30 days to organize your surrender. This meeting is concluded." Captain, who had been standing quietly behind them, stepped forward. "Sir, we should return to the ship." The three humans walked out of the chamber. Nobody stopped them. Nobody even looked at them as they left. Minyu realized that to the Council, this conversation was already over. Earth's decision had already been made in their minds. Their ship, the Harmony, waited in the orbital docking station. It was small compared to the other vessels around it. Some of the Council ships were so large they looked like floating cities. The Harmony was just a modified exploration vessel, barely 5 years old. As they boarded, locked the airlock behind them. "That went badly." "They didn't even pretend to negotiate," said. She looked angry and scared at the same time. "They just gave us orders like we're children." Minyu sat down in the captain's chair and rubbed his face. "Send a message back to Earth. Priority 1, tell them everything." The journey home took 3 days at maximum speed. During that time, Minyu watched the communication channels. News of the Council's ultimatum was spreading across Earth. Some people were panicking. Some were calling for war. Some were saying Earth should just accept the terms. President called a video conference from the UN headquarters in Geneva. Her face appeared on the main screen, looking tired. "Commander Minyu, I've read your report. The Security Council is in emergency session. What's your assessment?" Minyu thought carefully before answering. "Madame President, the Council has overwhelming military superiority. They've been doing this for 3,000 years. Every species they've contacted has submitted to their authority." "Then you think we should surrender?" asked General, who appeared on another screen. The General commanded Earth's unified defense forces, created just 10 years ago when the nations finally agreed to work together on space defense. "I didn't say that," Minyu replied. "I said every other species has submitted, but we're not every other species." Ambassador joined the conference call. She was one of Earth's most experienced diplomats, though she had never dealt with aliens before. None of them had until now. "Commander, what did you observe about the Council? Anything that might help us?" Minyu closed his eyes, remembering the chamber. They were confident, not just confident, completely certain. They didn't see us as a threat. They didn't even see us as equals. We were just another problem they've solved 1,000 times before. Pride said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. They're proud. They think they know exactly how this will go. President leaned forward. Then maybe we should surprise them. With what? General asked. Our military is no match for theirs. Our weapons are primitive compared to what they have. If we fight, we lose. Who said anything about fighting? President's expression changed. She was smiling, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who just had a dangerous idea. The council expects us to either surrender or fight. What if we do neither? Minyu felt a spark of hope. What do you have in mind? I need to speak with the world leaders. Commander, I want you and your team to stay available. We're going to need your insights. Ambassador, start reaching out to every diplomatic expert we have. Doctor, I need everything we know about council psychology and culture. The screens went dark one by one as the officials signed off, looked at Minyu. Do you think we have a chance? Minyu looked out the window at Earth, growing larger as they approached. The blue and green planet looked so peaceful from space. It was hard to believe that in 30 days, everything might change. I don't know, he said honestly, but the council made one mistake. What's that? Asked. They assumed we think like them. They assumed we'd respond the way every other species has responded. But humans, Minyu paused, trying to find the right words. We've never been very good at doing what we're supposed to do. The harmony entered Earth's atmosphere, flames trailing behind them as they descended. Below them, 7 billion people waited to hear their fate. The council's 30-day deadline had started. The clock was ticking. But Minyu realized something as they flew home. The council had given them 30 days because they thought Earth needed time to organize their surrender. They never considered that Earth might use those 30 days for something else entirely. President had asked, what if we do neither? Minyu didn't know what she was planning, but he knew one thing about humans. When faced with impossible choices, they often created a third option. It was what made humanity dangerous. It was also what made humanity special. The Harmony landed at the UN spaceport. As Minyu walked down the ramp, he saw thousands of people gathered outside the gates. They were chanting, waving signs, demanding answers. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender. Some just wanted to understand what was happening. Minyu looked at all those faces and made a decision. Whatever Earth chose to do, it would be humanity's choice, not the Council's. That was worth fighting for, even if the fight looked nothing like a war. High Admiral reviewed the tactical display with satisfaction. The holographic projection showed Earth's solar system in perfect detail. Every ship, every satellite, every defensive position was marked and analyzed. The simulation had run 300 times with the same result. 97.3% probability of surrender, he told the assembled Council military commanders. The remaining scenarios all result in rapid containment with minimal resistance. The other commanders nodded. They had seen this pattern before. A young species develops space travel. They feel powerful. The Council arrives and shows them the truth. They surrender. It was a story that had played out across the galaxy for 3. What about the human psychology? Asked Commander, a tactical specialist. The cultural analysis team noted some unusual patterns. Waved a manipulator dismissively. Every species thinks they're special. The humans are no different. They fight among themselves, their world is divided into competing nations, and their weapons technology is centuries behind ours. They will comply. In a different part of the Council station, Counselor studied reports with more care. She had been responsible for integrating 43 species into the Council. She knew that the first few days after an ultimatum were critical. Species usually went through predictable stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. But something about the human response was strange. "They're not mobilizing their military," her aide reported. "No troops moving to defensive positions. No emergency weapons production. They're just talking." Talking repeated. Every human government is in constant communication. They're holding meetings, conferences, and debates, but they're not preparing for war. Consider this. They're organizing their surrender. Good. This will be easier than expected. On Earth, President stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in history. Every nation had sent representatives. The meeting was broadcast to every person on the planet. Everyone wanted to know what Earth would do. "We have 27 days left," said. "The Council expects us to surrender or fight. I propose we give them a third option." The room erupted in questions. The president of the European Federation spoke first. "What third option? We can't fight them. We can't hide from them. What else is there?" "We invite them to dinner," said. The room went silent. Someone laughed nervously. Then everyone started talking at once. General stood up. "Madame President, with respect, this is not a joke. We're talking about the survival of our species." "I'm completely serious," replied. "The Council treats every species the same way. They arrive, they demand submission, they enforce their rules. It's worked for 3,000 years. But what if we don't play by their rules?" Ambassador stepped forward to support the president. "Consider what we know about the Council. They value order, hierarchy, and control. They've built a civilization based on these principles. But humans, we're chaotic, we're unpredictable, we create art for no logical reason. We have festivals just to celebrate. We make friends with strangers." "And you think this will stop them from conquering us?" asked the Prime Minister of the Asian Union. "No," said, "but it might make them question whether conquest is necessary." Doctor, the quantum physics expert, presented the technical side of the plan. "The Council gave us 30 days. We can't build weapons that match theirs in that time, but we can build communication networks. We can create quantum relays that reach across multiple systems. We can make it impossible for them to isolate us." Doctor added the cultural component. "We've been analyzing Council member species. Most of them joined the Council hundreds or thousands of years ago. They've forgotten what it's like to be independent. But there are younger species that joined more recently. They might remember." Commander Minu explained the strategy. "We're going to announce the first galactic cultural exchange. We're inviting every species in known space to come to Earth. Not for war, not for politics, just to meet us. To share culture, art, music, food, and ideas." "The Council will never allow it," someone said. "Then they'll have to blockade Earth while hundreds of other species are trying to visit us," Minu replied. "They'll have to explain to the galaxy why they're preventing peaceful contact. They'll have to justify their authority in a way they've never had to before." President took control of the meeting again. "This plan is risky. The Council might see it as defiance. They might act to stop us, but if we surrender, we lose our freedom forever. If we fight, we lose everything. This way, we at least have a chance." The voting took 3 hours. In the end, 173 nations voted in favor, 12 voted against, 5 abstained. Earth had made its choice. The message was sent across every known communication channel. It was translated into 47 alien languages. It was broadcast on radio waves, laser communications, and quantum relays. Within hours, it had reached 100 systems. "Greetings from Earth," the message began. "We have recently learned we are not alone in the universe. This discovery fills us with joy and curiosity. We wish to know you, to learn from you, and to share what we have learned. In 30 days, Earth will host the first galactic cultural exchange. All species are welcome. Come as friends, come as students, come as teachers. Come to share stories, art, music, and food. We have much to learn from the stars. We hope we have something to share in return." On the Council station, alarms started going off. Communication channels were flooding with responses to Earth's message. Species from systems the Council barely monitored were responding. Independent traders were changing course toward Earth. Even some Council member species were expressing interest. High Admiral stared at the tactical display in confusion. This wasn't in any of the scenarios. What are they doing? Counselor was equally confused, but she felt something else too: concern. The Council's authority was based on being the only option. Every species came to them because there was nowhere else to go. But Earth had just created an alternative, and the galaxy was responding. "We need to stop this," said. "Deploy the fleet. Blockade Earth system. No ships in or out." "Wait," said. "If we blockade them now, we prove their point. We show the galaxy that we rule through force, not through cooperation. We've spent 3,000 years building a reputation for maintaining order. If we attack Earth for hosting a cultural festival, what message does that send?" Back on Earth, the work began. Every nation contributed. The Chinese built massive translation centers. The Americans retrofitted their orbital stations to accommodate alien biology. The Europeans established cultural exchange programs. The Africans prepared agricultural demonstrations. The South Americans organized music festivals. Sara, a musician from Korea, was chosen to lead the artistic coordination. She began composing something unprecedented: a symphony that would incorporate sounds and musical concepts from every known species. She called it the Galactic Symphony. A chef started working with biochemists to create food that different alien species could safely eat. He experimented with flavors, textures, and presentations that would appeal to beings with different senses. All across Earth, millions of people began preparing. They learned alien languages. They studied alien cultures. They created art inspired by the few images they had of other worlds. And every day, more responses came from across the galaxy. Some species were interested. Some were curious. Some were excited. The Council tried to intercept these messages, but Earth's quantum relays made that impossible. On day 15, the first non-Council ship entered Earth's solar system. It was a small trading vessel from an independent colony. Captain flew out to meet them in the Harmony. "Welcome to Earth," he said in heavily accented Galactic Common. "We're honored to have you." The alien captain, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish, responded with obvious excitement. "We've never been invited anywhere before. The Council only permits controlled contact. This is wonderful." By day 20, 12 ships had arrived. By day 25, 43. The Council watched in growing alarm as their carefully controlled galaxy began to slip out of their grasp, all because one young species decided to throw a party instead of a war. The Council chamber was in chaos for the first time in centuries. Representatives from member species were demanding answers. Why had Earth not been blockaded? Why were ships traveling freely to the human home world? Why was the Council allowing this breach of protocol? High Admiral stood before them, trying to maintain order. "We are monitoring the situation. Earth's actions do not constitute a military threat." "Then what do they constitute?" asked a delegate from one of the older member species. "They refused our terms. They're gathering ships from across the galaxy. They're broadcasting messages to systems that have never had contact with aliens before." Counselor stepped forward. She had been thinking about this problem for days. "They're hosting a party. That's what they're doing. And if we attack them for it, we become the villains of this story." "So we do nothing," demanded. "We observe," said, "and we prepare for multiple outcomes." On Earth, day 29 arrived. Tomorrow was the deadline. Tomorrow, Earth was supposed to surrender. Instead, Earth was preparing for the largest gathering in human history. Ships filled the orbit around Earth. Not hundreds anymore, but thousands. They came from independent colonies, from frontier worlds, from species that had never seen the Council. They came because someone had invited them, and that invitation was something new. Doctor coordinated the arrival of each ship. She worked with translators, biologists, and engineers to make sure every species could survive in Earth's environment, even if only for a few hours. Some needed different atmospheres, some needed different gravity, some needed protection from Earth's sun. "We have representatives from 127 different species," she reported to President, "and more are arriving every hour." Minu stood in the newly constructed International Welcome Center in Geneva. It had been built in just 3 weeks, a massive structure designed to accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes. Outside, crowds of humans waited to meet the visitors. There were no security forces beyond basic crowd control. There were no weapons, just people waiting to say hello. The first official visitors walked through the doors. They were a group of 6 beings from 3 different species. One looked like a bird made of metal. One looked like a walking tree. One looked almost human except for the scales and 4 arms. The crowd erupted in applause, not angry shouting, not fearful screaming, applause. The aliens stopped, clearly surprised. An elderly woman stepped forward. She was holding a sign that said "Welcome Friends" in Galactic Common. She smiled at the visitors. "We're so happy you came." The bird-like alien tilted its head. Its translator converted its chirping into Korean, then into English for the crowd. "You are not afraid of us." "Why would we be afraid?" the woman asked. "You came all this way to visit, that makes you our guests." This scene repeated across the planet. In New York, a group of young artists showed their alien visitors their work. In Mumbai, chefs prepared fusion dishes combining Earth spices with alien ingredients. In Tokyo, musicians performed concerts that mixed human and alien instruments. In Lagos, dancers taught visitors traditional moves. Sara stood before an orchestra unlike any in history. There were humans playing violins and drums. There were aliens playing instruments that humans had never seen before. Some instruments produced sounds that humans couldn't even hear, recorded and modified so everyone could experience them. "We're going to make something beautiful," she told them in Galactic Common. "Every culture here has contributed something to this music. This is not human music. This is not alien music. This is our music." The Galactic Symphony began. It started with a simple human melody on a piano. Then an alien instrument joined in, adding harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then another instrument, this one producing rhythms that resonated in your chest. More instruments joined, more voices, more sounds. The audience listened in silence. Humans and aliens sat side by side, experiencing something that had never existed before. When the final note faded, nobody moved. Then, slowly, the applause began. On the council station, they were watching the broadcasts. Every council member was seeing the same images. Humans and aliens talking, laughing, sharing food, making art together. There was no violence, no disorder, no chaos, just people from different worlds meeting each other. "This is not possible," one council member said. "Cultural exchange takes decades to organize. It requires strict protocols and careful supervision." "Humans don't seem to know that," another member replied. Counselor was thinking about something Doctor had said in their first meeting. "They're not following our rules." That was the problem. The council had rules for how species were supposed to interact. Humanity was ignoring those rules, and it was working. The deadline arrived. It was day 30. High Admiral sent a message to Earth demanding a formal response to the Council's ultimatum. President replied with a live video broadcast. She stood in the middle of the Welcome Center, surrounded by humans and aliens who were talking and laughing together. "High Admiral, members of the Council, we have considered your terms carefully," she said. "Earth appreciates the order and stability the Council has brought to the galaxy. We respect the wisdom of the elder species, but we cannot accept terms that require us to surrender our freedom to choose our own path." face appeared on the screen. Then you choose defiance, you choose consequences. No, said calmly. We choose friendship, we choose cooperation. We choose to meet the galaxy with open arms. You gave us two options, surrender or fight. We chose a third option, invitation, and the galaxy has responded. Behind her, an alien child was trying to eat ice cream for the first time. The cold surprised her, and she made a face. A human child laughed and showed her how to lick it slowly. Both children started giggling. You see that? Pointed to the children. That's what we're doing here. We're learning from each other. We're making friends. This doesn't threaten the council. This doesn't threaten anyone. This is just people meeting people. General sent a private message to the Council Military Command. It contained detailed scans of Earth's defensive capabilities. You should know, he said, that while we've been preparing for the cultural exchange, we've also been preparing to defend ourselves. We don't want war. But if you attack us now in front of all these witnesses while we're hosting a peaceful gathering, you'll have to fight through every ship in this system, and they won't all be ours. It was true. The ships in orbit around Earth weren't just visitors. Many of them had made it clear they would help defend Earth if the Council attacked, not because of military alliances, but because Earth had shown them something they hadn't seen in generations: genuine welcome. Ambassador was in a meeting with representatives from 15 different species. They were drafting a document together, something they called the Declaration of Free Association. It stated that species should have the right to make their own choices about who they contacted and how they organized themselves. We're not trying to replace the Council, explained. We're just saying there should be more than one way to exist in the galaxy. The Council's way works for species that want structure and order, but some species might want something different. The Council will never accept this, one representative said. They might not have a choice, another replied. Look at how many species are here. Look at how many ships came to Earth despite the Council's disapproval. The galaxy is bigger than the Council. They just forgot that for a while. Doctor activated the quantum relay network. It was now complete, spanning 30 systems. Any message sent from Earth would be received by hundreds of colonies and stations instantly. The Council could no longer control information flow. They could no longer isolate troublesome species. The galaxy just got a lot smaller, he said to his team. Or maybe it got a lot bigger, depending on how you look at it. His restaurant had a waiting list of 3 weeks. Aliens from across the galaxy wanted to try his fusion cuisine. He had invented dishes that could be enjoyed by species with completely different biology. Some meals were eaten with mouths, some were absorbed through skin, some were experienced as pure energy. Food is universal, he told a reporter. Everyone needs to eat, so why not make it delicious and beautiful? As Day 30 ended and Day 31 began, Earth still stood free. The Council had not attacked, the visitors had not left, the galaxy had not ended. Instead, something new was beginning, and nobody knew exactly what it would become. But for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy had more than one path forward, and that changed everything. 3 weeks after the deadline, the Council faced a problem they had never encountered before. 7 member species had formally requested permission to establish independent cultural exchange programs with Earth. 12 more were considering similar requests. The carefully controlled order that had lasted 3 was beginning to crack. Counselor called an emergency private session with only the senior council members present. We need to discuss the reality of our situation, she began. The galaxy is watching us. If we attack Earth now, we don't just fight one planet. We fight the idea that Earth represents. And what idea is that? High Admiral asked, though he already knew the answer. Choice, said. The idea that species can choose their own path. The idea that there's more than one way to exist in the galaxy. One of the elder council members, a being so old it remembered the Great War, spoke in a voice like distant thunder. We created the council to prevent another war. We established order because chaos killed billions. Are you suggesting we abandon everything we've built? No, replied. I'm suggesting we remember why we built it. We wanted peace. We wanted stability, but maybe there's more than one path to those goals. On Earth, Commander Minu was dealing with a different kind of problem. Success was overwhelming. More than 1 million aliens had arrived on Earth. The logistics of housing, feeding, and caring for so many different species was pushing human capabilities to their limit. We need more accommodation facilities, Doctor reported, and we're running out of compatible food supplies for the methane breathers. Also, 3 species are having territory disputes because they didn't know they were ancient enemies. Handle the enemies first, Minu said. Put them in a room with human mediators who don't know about their ancient history. Sometimes ignorance helps. It worked surprisingly well. When the 2 enemy species tried to explain their conflict to the human mediators, they realized how ridiculous it sounded after thousands of years. They agreed to a temporary peace for the duration of the cultural exchange. Captain was leading a different kind of mission. Several ships had arrived carrying refugees from Council border worlds. These were species that had joined the Council under pressure, and now they were looking for alternatives. We can't become a refugee center, General warned. We barely have resources for our current guests. Then we share what we have, President decided. Send messages to other independent colonies. Ask if they can help. This is bigger than Earth now. The response was immediate. 43 independent colonies offered assistance. They sent food, supplies, and temporary housing. They also sent a message. Earth wasn't alone anymore. Ambassador was coordinating something even more ambitious. She was organizing a conference with representatives from every species that had come to Earth. The goal was simple: create an alternative to the Council, not to fight them but to offer another option. We're calling it the Free Alliance, she explained to the assembly. Any species can join, any species can leave. There are no forced terms, no mandatory integration, just cooperation between equals. The debate was intense. Some species wanted structure and rules. Some wanted complete freedom. Some wanted something in between. But they were talking, arguing, compromising. They were doing what the Council had never allowed, making their own choices. Sora's Galactic Symphony had become a phenomenon. Recordings of the performance had spread across hundreds of systems. Species that had never heard alien music were listening to it. Some were inspired to create their own fusion works. Art was spreading faster than the Council could monitor. One Council member species, had been particularly moved by the symphony. They had been part of the Council for 800 years, and in all that time, they had never been asked to contribute to something creative. They had only been asked to follow rules. A representative approached Ambassador with a question that would change everything. What if Council members wanted to join the Free Alliance? Would you allow it? Was careful with her answer. We're not trying to destroy the Council. We're just offering an alternative. If a species wants to be part of both, we can discuss that. This possibility terrified the Council leadership. If member species started joining the Free Alliance while remaining in the Council, it would undermine the Council's authority completely. High Admiral wanted to act. We should deploy the fleet now, blockade Earth, force the ships to leave, show the galaxy that the Council still has power. But another voice spoke up, one that rarely participated in Council debates. It was the representative from one of the founding species of the Council. I fought in the Great War. I saw what happens when we rule through fear and force. We created the Council to be different. If we attack Earth now, we become what we once fought against. The argument continued for hours. Finally, Counselor proposed a different approach. What if we sent a diplomatic mission to Earth? Not to threaten, not to demand, just to talk, to understand what they're really doing. It was agreed. A small Council delegation would visit Earth. No military escort, no demands, just conversation. When the council ship approached Earth, Captain flew out to meet them in the Harmony. He was nervous. This could be a trick, a way to get close to Earth's defenses, but he followed his orders. "Welcome to Earth," he said. "President is ready to meet with you." The council delegation consisted of 5 members, including Counselor and, surprisingly, High Admiral. They were brought to the Welcome Center, where the cultural exchange was still in full swing. Looked around in barely concealed shock. Aliens and humans were everywhere, mixing freely. There were no security checkpoints, no control measures, no separation protocols. It was chaos, but it was peaceful chaos. "How do you manage this?" he asked Minyu. "How do you prevent conflicts?" "We don't prevent them," Minyu replied. "We resolve them when they happen. Sometimes species argue. Sometimes there are misunderstandings, but we talk through them. We find solutions." President met with the delegation in a room that overlooked the main gathering area. She didn't sit at the head of a table. She sat in a circle with them as equals. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know this isn't easy for the council." Spoke carefully. "We need to understand your intentions. Are you trying to replace the council?" "No," said honestly. "We're trying to give species another option. The council has maintained peace for 3,000 years. That's an incredible achievement. But peace through forced control isn't the only kind of peace possible. And if your way leads to chaos, to conflict," demanded. "It might," admitted. "Humans have had plenty of chaos and conflict in our history. We've fought terrible wars. We've made horrible mistakes. But we've also learned something. Lasting peace comes from choice, not coercion." She gestured to the gathering below. "Look at them. 127 species, many of them historical enemies, all in the same space. Are they fighting? Are they killing each other? No, they're talking, they're learning, they're making art together." Doctor joined the conversation. "The council was created after a great war. You wanted to prevent another one, but you tried to prevent war by eliminating all possibility of conflict. We're trying something different. We're accepting that conflict will happen, but we're building systems to resolve it peacefully." General added his perspective. "Your military protects the council through strength. We're building protection through connections. If anyone attacks a Free Alliance member, they attack everyone's friend. That's a different kind of deterrent." The delegation stayed on Earth for 3 days. They observed, they talked with visitors, they attended a concert, they tried the food, and slowly their perspective began to shift. On the 3rd day, High Admiral had a private conversation with General. "Your defensive systems are crude," he said bluntly. "But your strategy is interesting. You've made yourselves too connected to isolate, too popular to attack without consequences." "We learned from the council," replied. "You maintained peace through overwhelming force. We're maintaining peace through overwhelming friendship." When the delegation prepared to leave, Counselor made an unexpected statement. "The council will not attack Earth. We will not interfere with the cultural exchange or the Free Alliance, but we need time to consider what this means for the galaxy." It wasn't surrender, it wasn't acceptance, but it was something humanity could work with, time to prove their way could succeed. 6 months after the council's ultimatum, Counselor requested a private meeting aboard the Harmony. This time, there were no other council members present, just President and Commander Minyu. They met in the ship's small conference room. Through the window, Earth turned slowly below them, its orbit now permanently filled with ships from across the galaxy. Was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "I need to tell you the truth about the council, the real truth, not the official history." And Minyu waited. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy was at war, began. Not one war, dozens of wars. Species fought over resources, territory, ideology. Billions died. Entire worlds were destroyed. It was called the Fracture, and it nearly ended all intelligent life in this region of space. We know about the Great War, Minyu said. You know the simple version, corrected. What you don't know is what stopped it. It wasn't wisdom. It wasn't peace talks. It was exhaustion. Every major species was so damaged, so depleted, that continuing to fight meant extinction. So we came together and created the Council. She paused, her alien features unreadable to the humans, but her voice carried emotion. We created a system where no species could ever have the freedom to start another war. We controlled everything: technology, military, communications, contact with other species. We told ourselves it was for the greater good, and for 3,000 years it worked. No major wars, no mass extinction events, peace. But it came at a cost, said quietly. Yes, agreed. Freedom, choice, diversity of thought. We created peace by making the galaxy uniform. Every species eventually thought the same way, acted the same way, followed the same rules. We didn't realize what we were losing until you showed us. She looked out at Earth. When you refused to surrender or fight, when you invited the galaxy to visit instead, you broke our model of how species behave. And then we watched as the galaxy responded. Species we thought were content under Council rule turned out to be eager for alternatives. Species we thought were too different to cooperate were making art together. Everything we believed about order and control was challenged. So what happens now? Minyu asked. Took a deep breath. The Council wants to negotiate, not to force Earth to join, to genuinely negotiate. We want to propose a new structure, a reformed Council that operates differently. Over the next 3 months, the negotiations were intense. Representatives from the Council, the Free Alliance, and dozens of independent species met regularly. Ambassador led the Earth delegation, working with teams from 50 different species to draft a new charter. The key points of disagreement were fundamental. The Council wanted to maintain some level of central authority. The Free Alliance members wanted complete autonomy. Finding middle ground required compromise from everyone. Doctor proposed a technical solution, a galaxy-wide information network that no single entity controlled. Every species would have access to the same information, the same communication capabilities. Secrets and information control had been tools of the Council's power. Giving that up was frightening for them. If everyone has access to everything, chaos will follow, a Council member argued. Or everyone will be educated enough to make their own good choices, Doctor countered. You've been deciding what information species can handle. Maybe it's time to trust them to decide for themselves. General worked with High Admiral on military cooperation. It was strange for both of them. Had spent his entire career enforcing Council authority through military might. Had spent recent months defending against that authority. But they found common ground in the goal of preventing another great war. We both want peace, admitted during one late-night discussion. We just have different ideas about how to achieve it. Maybe we need both ideas, suggested. Your strength to deter aggression, our connections to make aggression unthinkable. The result was a proposal for a joint defense network. Council military forces would remain for protection against external threats, but individual species would control their own defensive capabilities, and any military action would require approval from both Council leadership and a vote of the affected species. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Sora was working on something she called the Galactic Cultural Archive. It would be a shared library of art, music, literature, and history from every known species. The Council had maintained archives, but they were controlled and censored. This new archive would be open to everyone. Culture shouldn't be controlled, she explained to a Council representative who was concerned about inappropriate content spreading. Yes, some species will see things they find offensive or strange, but they'll also see beauty they never imagined. Understanding grows from exposure, not isolation. Captain had a different role now. He was training pilots from dozens of species in Earth's diplomatic approach. He called it navigation through conversation. The idea was simple. When you encountered a problem, you talked your way through it before you fought your way through it. But what if talking fails? A young pilot asked. Then you try talking again, replied. And if that fails, you try a different way of talking. Fighting should always be the last option, not the first. The breakthrough came during a joint session where a representative from one of the oldest council species made an unexpected statement. We've been so focused on preventing the past from repeating that we've prevented the future from happening. Earth has shown us that we can have peace without uniformity. Maybe it's time we trusted the galaxy to find its own way. The new Galactic Charter was signed 1 year after Earth's deadline. It restructured the Council into an alliance of equals. Every species could choose to join or remain independent. Council membership came with benefits but not requirements. Military protection was available but not mandatory. Information flowed freely. Species could contact each other directly without Council permission. Most importantly, the Charter established the principle that every species had the right to self-determination. The Council could make recommendations, could offer assistance, could even apply diplomatic pressure. But they couldn't force compliance. Not every Council member was happy. Some left, feeling betrayed by the changes. Some stayed but complained constantly. But most adapted, realizing that the new system might actually be better for everyone. President stood before the Galactic Assembly on the first anniversary of Earth's invitation. The Assembly now met on rotating worlds, not just in Council space. Today it was meeting on Earth, in the expanded Welcome Center. 1 year ago, the Council gave Earth an ultimatum, she said. Surrender or face consequences. We chose a third option, invitation. We invited you to meet us, to know us, to judge us for yourselves. And you came. More than 1 million individuals from 127 species. You came to share, to learn, to experience something new. She paused, looking at the assembled representatives. Some of you were skeptical. Some of you thought we were naive or foolish. Some of you expected chaos and conflict. But instead, you saw something different. You saw that peace doesn't require uniformity. That order doesn't require control. That species from across the galaxy can work together without being forced together. Commander Minyu watched from the side. A year ago, he had stood in the council chamber feeling small and powerless. Now he stood in Earth's chamber as an equal partner in a transformed galaxy. The change was almost too big to comprehend. Doctor was documenting everything for the historical record. This needs to be remembered, she told her team. Not just that humanity stood up to the council, but how we did it. Future species need to know there are always more options than the powerful want you to believe. Ambassador was already planning the second Galactic Cultural Exchange. This one would be hosted by the council species that had first asked about joining the Free Alliance. They wanted to show their culture, to share what they had created during their 800 years in the council. The galaxy is learning, observed to President. Learning that contact doesn't have to be conquest. That difference doesn't have to mean conflict. That we're all better when we choose to work together. Fusion Restaurant had expanded to 3 locations on Earth and had inspired similar restaurants on 15 other worlds. Food had become a symbol of the new era, taking the best from different cultures and creating something new without destroying the originals. High Admiral, in a development nobody had predicted, had become one of Earth's strongest supporters on the Council. He and General had developed a friendship based on mutual respect. They regularly conducted joint training exercises, teaching both Council and Alliance forces the value of cooperation. I spent my whole career believing strength came from dominance, admitted to during one exercise. Earth taught me that strength can come from connection. I was wrong for a long time. We've all been wrong about something, replied. The important thing is learning from it. As the anniversary celebration continued, Sara performed the Galactic Symphony again. This time, The orchestra included council musicians who had volunteered to participate. The music had evolved over the year, incorporating new instruments and new voices. It was more complex, more beautiful, and more representative of the diverse galaxy. When the final note faded, Counselor stood to speak. 1 year ago, Earth surprised us. They responded to our ultimatum in a way we never anticipated. We expected submission or resistance. We received invitation. And in doing so, they changed not just their future, but all of ours. She looked at President. We came to your world planning to absorb you into our system. Instead, you absorbed us into yours. You showed us that there are other ways to maintain peace, other ways to build civilization, other ways to be. President smiled. We didn't do this alone. Every species here contributed. Every individual who chose to come, to participate, to try something new. This is everyone's achievement. As the ceremony ended and the celebration began, humans and aliens mixed freely. They talked, laughed, shared stories and food and ideas. It wasn't perfect. There were still misunderstandings and disagreements, but they were working through them together. Minyu stood with Captain, watching the celebration. Do you remember when we first came back from the council, when we thought we had 30 days before everything changed? Everything did change, replied, just not the way anyone expected. The council thought we would respond like every other species, but we're not every other species. No, agreed. We're humans, we're stubborn, creative, and impossible to predict, and now the whole galaxy knows it. In the end, Earth's response wasn't what the council expected because humanity refused to accept that there were only two options. When faced with surrender or fight, humans created a third option. And in doing so, they reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten, that the future doesn't have to look like the past, that change is possible, and that sometimes the best response to a threat is an invitation to dance.